The Business Visibility podcast series is brought to you by my strategy sessions. That's 90 minutes of pure focus on the growth of you and your business. Go to angelarasmus.com/strategy for more information. Inspiration, clarity, confidence, and wholehearted business strategy. Welcome to Your Next Chapter, the podcast especially for women in their 40s and beyond who know that business and personal development go hand in hand. Tune in each week for marketing, mindset, and personal growth strategies, along with inspiring stories from women around the world who are creating new businesses and lives that are personally fulfilling and financially rewarding. If you're looking to create a business and life you love, you're in great company. Let's find out what will unfold in your next chapter. I'm your host, Angela Rasmus, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Hey, I've got a free gift for you. It's a wonderful resource I've created that goes along with this podcast series. If you go to angelarasmus.com/visibility, you'll be able to download the workbook, and it helps you create and implement your own visibility plan. I hope you'll find it really helpful. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Your Next Chapter podcast. And you've joined us in the middle of the Business Visibility series. And that's all about developing smart strategies that will raise your personal brand profile so that you can connect with more of your most aligned clients, which is what we're all looking for as we build our next chapter businesses. Now, you're in for a treat today. I've had the joy of talking with Jo Saunders in the past. And when we connected, I knew that this was a person whose expertise and sense of humor both had to be featured on this podcast. You're going to learn so much from Jo today. She's an absolute LinkedIn demystifier and the founder of Wildfire Social Marketing. So if you're driving, ignore what I'm about to say, but if you're listening to this anywhere else, grab a pen and paper and definitely take some notes, because you're going to walk away today with some great ideas and absolutely actionable strategies and tips and tactics that will raise your visibility in the LinkedIn world. So how's that to stand up for, Jo? We're all here with poised pens now because we really are looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you for being on the show today.
Oh, no problems. I've never been introduced as having such a great sense of humour, so no pressure on at all.
Well, I know it was an absolute experience when you and I have spoken in the past. So just had that lift after the call. Yeah. So it's a definite thing, I promise. Let's talk all things about your background first. I always love to find out from my guests is the previous chapters, really to indicate to anyone who's listening that we hardly ever just turn up in our business beautifully successful right now. There's usually some backstory, some previous chapters that led us to where we are today. So could you have a bit of a sneak into your backstory for us so we can understand how Jo became Jo?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I often look back and I take time to reflect and sort of connect the dots, because a lot of the things from my past I never really put any value on until I realised that the reason behind everything I've done in my professional career generally has the same reason. So like my first business, I started it, actually it was my first business, but my first sort of kind of business, it was a hobby business, was all about helping people connect around the world. I ran a pen friend club for 8 years. And that was all about letter writing and, postal mail and helping people, find friends. Goodness. And I really didn't value that as a thing. I used to have lots of pen friends myself, particularly when I moved to Australia. It started in French class in first year of high school, had some pen friends in France, added a few more. And by the time I was 17, I think I had about 100 pen friends. It cost me a fortune in postage. But I thought there aren't many pen friend clubs in Australia. And I always wanted to have my own magazine. So I combined the two ideas and just did it. No one said I couldn't. So the magazine was lots of cutting and pasting and gluing and photocopying and all sorts of stuff. But that was helping people connect with a social purpose. But it was the same reason as exactly what I'm doing now. I help people connect using the social media tools. So that was sort of both ends. But going back even further, when I was probably about 12, actually my dream, and I realise it's still my dream now, I want to have a club with members. And I'm just about to launch a club, actually. And it was that big realisation. So when I was about 12, I set up a fake club for my little sister, who's 5 years younger. And I told her I was signing her up for the Barbie Club. And I used to love making stuff with paper. I've got this fascination with stationery and So I'd make all this stuff, package it together. It's all, sellotaped and glue. And I'd run to the front of the house, put it through the mailbox in the front door, and say, Kerry, the mail's been. Go and see if it's for you. And she got so excited. And I did the same thing for my brother, who's only 2 years younger. But that was me it was about community. So it was about having a little club, community, connecting. So it was only recently I realised that these things are all part of why I do what I do now, which sounds really silly, but it's the thing that just fills me with joy. So helping people connect, helping people express themselves, and now it's professionally, obviously. But my actual professional background, once I worked out what I actually wanted to do, was events. So organising conferences, marketing conferences, helping people connect and learn. And I did that for a number of years. So for me now, running events, I still love doing. I can do it in my sleep. It doesn't cause me any stress at all. But I now do social media for events, for conferences. So it's those things behind the thing, if that makes sense.
I love it. I mean, this is a great example of what I call the mosaic of me, the mosaic of you in this case, where you're seeing how the pieces, when they're sitting there by themselves, they don't seem connected. But when you actually put them into the puzzle, you can see how they all fit together. You've been connecting people forever.
Yeah.
Creating community forever. I love it. And look, a little confession here. You brought back a memory now. I actually set up a detective agency in my garage when I was about 12 years old.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was back in the, way back when we had a walkie-talkie each, a girlfriend and I, and to sneak around the neighbourhood solving crimes. And we had a very small club. But
were you a reader of like Secret 7, Famous 5?
Oh, my goodness, yes. 8 this morning. Just loved them, and then you went on from there. So yes,
oh my gosh,
isn't it interesting looking back? And I love the point that you made, that it wasn't until you've reflected that you've recognised that things you've done in your past have very much contributed to the next chapter business that you have today. When we
Absolutely.
can find those connecting threads, we don't always see them until we actually do reflect. But I'm a huge believer in nothing that you have done in the past does not contribute to what you do today. In fact, everything contributes, and you'll be able to find those threads. And you've developed your superpowers along the way, which are now being expressed in a new way, which is through LinkedIn and through events. So that's brilliant. Thank you for that little window in your world.
Oh, as you can see, that's just the stuff I love. And interesting. So my first proper business where I tried to actually make money, I didn't. It just it covered our fees. Was I partnered with a girlfriend of mine. I've always liked art. I wanted to have my own stationery brand. So to fast track to get started, we bought some stationery. Now, it's very expensive stationery. I've still got some in a box. So it's quite useful. We had a market stall called Correspondimania Stationery, and my Penfriend Club was Correspondimania Penfriends. And we covered our rent every week. We got to hang out for 2 days on a weekend and gossiped and had a great time drinking coffee and whatever. Made no money at all. So that's another little thing. So now this sort of chapter of my life is about how to actually monetize what I do, a bit more effectively than, those experiences from way back when. So we learn a lot along the way.
We do. But absolutely, such an important part of what we're doing in our businesses is the monetization piece. We can't be afraid of or step back from actually charging well for what it is that we provide for others. But the step before that, and once you've got your model and your services and you found the need that you are meeting and the problem that you're solving in your unique way, now we need to get visible. I don't know why I keep thinking of Olivia Newton-John when I say that let's get visible.
There's probably a song there.
I mean, there could be. So this concept of getting visible, but not just visible by accident. This is about creating strategies that will help build upon that visibility day after day, week after week, month after month. And it's being seen, being visible in front of the right people, what I call your most aligned clients. And LinkedIn, I've heard it said, and it may have even been by you, that this is the year of LinkedIn. And so there'll be some of us that are listening to this podcast episode thinking, look, LinkedIn isn't really my thing. I'm more of a Facebook person or an Instagram person, etc. And that may be true, but for many of us, it's an incredibly important part of our overall visibility strategy. Could you start by talking to us about what LinkedIn, what role LinkedIn plays in an overall visibility strategy? Who is it, inverted commas, for?
Well, initially it was seen as for job seekers. It was the online resume, and some people will still say it is in some ways. I mean, that's one market, absolutely. If you're looking for a job, LinkedIn is the place to be. And it's not new. I mean, it's been around for 15 years, but it's been constantly evolving. But it's really for anybody in the career phase of their life. So whether you're a student starting out, a graduate, starting a business, in a job, or even if you're at the end of your career where you're actually looking to give back a mentor, there's a place for LinkedIn for everybody. And it's about positioning yourself as the expert you are, if that's where you are, or as the specialist that you're in, depending on, like I said, where you are in your career. But I'm not sure if it was me that said that, but I know I was recently at Social Media Marketing World, which is, the biggest social media conferences. And two of the keynote speakers both said, Guy Kawasaki was one of them, said that LinkedIn is, you need to be on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn. So it's certainly gaining traction. I mean, it's becoming a lot sexier as well, a lot more visual, a lot more visible itself. So it certainly fits in for everybody who's in business.
It certainly, I've noticed that, I've been using it for years as well, but I've certainly noticed that almost the flavour, the atmosphere within the LinkedIn platform has changed. And it seems to me since it was purchased. Who purchased it a while ago?
Oh, Microsoft.
Yeah. And so the atmosphere is changing in there. So, but it's not just a case of, make your profile look great and jump in there occasionally and post the occasional thing. I mean, that's, that tactical sort of approach. We need to rise above that and move more into the strategic approach. So if somebody is coming to LinkedIn, I loved that what I've spoken to you about before, that, for your strategic visibility, we have to look at profile building, content strategy, and networking strategy. There's three specific phases. Shall we dive into each of those and how
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about then the idea of our profile building. So we may have a profile, we might have knocked it up there on LinkedIn some time ago, but haven't necessarily got it to the best stage it could be. So what's essential for us to have in a good profile, and how does that help with being found and being visible?
Well, one thing to really know is wherever you're at in your career or your business, particularly if you're an expert in your field, you've sort of feel like you've grown up and you know what you're doing. If you know who your ideal client is, you've got that persona, you know what problems they have that you solve, you've done a bit of research on keywords and phrases that they would use to find you. That's the critical thing, having that information in your profile so you will be found, so you will be visible firstly. But then there's the telling your backstory. So how we started is perfect because, like I said, some of my own backstory I'd left off my profile because it wasn't relevant. It wasn't part of my professional career. But it absolutely is because it's part of my story. So I bring those little pieces into the way I'm telling my own story because that's my point of difference. No one's got my exact experience. No one's got my exact pathway and my purpose for what I do. So if you as a business owner, you as a professional, kind of have connected with your purpose and your passion, you know who your ideal clients are, bringing all that together in your profile allows you to be found and then to connect, if that makes sense.
So what we're talking about here is really differentiation. I as a business mentor, there's a heap of us out there. If you Google or if you search on LinkedIn for a mentor, there are so many that pop up. But what we're saying here is to make you stand out, to make you have that ability to connect with somebody who really relates to the way that you see the world. That comes through sharing the backstory, yeah?
Well, absolutely. And the way you write. So back in the day, saying the flavour has changed is spot on because way back when LinkedIn was seen as almost the boring uncle of Facebook. It had no personality. It was very black and white, very much fact-based. And here's the evidence of what I've done. But now people are writing with personality, which I think is critical because people connect to the person behind the profile. So if you can write with personality so people can, get you. And the thing is, I think having the confidence to get that you're not for everybody. Like, I'm not for everybody. Some people might want boring and bland and, very factual, I guess I am analytical, but I'm very, I've got my own flavour, I suppose, and it's okay for people to opt out. But if you've got the confidence to write that way, to use the right language, to position yourself in the right way, people will find you, and
Absolutely.
connect.
So when you were talking about the importance of us knowing what words people are searching for, so what they're actually typing into Google to solve the problem that you're here to solve or to find the type of services that you provide, is that what we're using first and foremost in our title, sort of that area up the top under your name on your LinkedIn profile? Is that where it's most important, or is it throughout the description that you have of yourself on your profile?
Well, yes. So the most important piece of text is that headline. It's called the headline. It sits under your name on LinkedIn. It's 120 characters, and it follows you everywhere. Because if you notice your connections when you're searching on LinkedIn, you get the short list of the people that come up. You see their name, their photo, and their headline. If you're in the newsfeed and you're looking at what your connections are saying, that's information you've got to sort of judge someone or put them in a place. So if your headline says something like consultant or business owner or something quite vague, it needs context. So context is key to your headline, and the context comes from the problems you solve, the language that your ideal clients are using, but also your branding. So it's a bit of a fuse of both. But if my brand, I guess I've become known, the LinkedIn Demystifier, is a brand I've built based on the feedback people would give me on what I do for them. But no one's searching for LinkedIn Demystify unless they know me. If they don't know who I am, they're not going to say, "Oh, I feel like I need to demystify LinkedIn today." So you've got to have that balance of what is the problem that they have, if it's LinkedIn training, LinkedIn consulting, LinkedIn workshops, whatever it is, plus the brand. So for any professional, it's understanding, who you are, but who your ideal client is firstly, so you can write that headline according to, so you'll be found and stand out.
Okay, that's a really good point. So our headline needs to be what people are actually searching for, and then we can add the flavour to. So if you've found someone as a business coach or a LinkedIn strategist or whatever the case may be, then the flavour, so you can see if you actually resonate with them as a potential provider. That's what happens when you're actually writing the story about yourself on your profile.
Yeah, that's a really nice. You've got a great way with words. That's a really nice way to say that, because your headline gets you found.
Yeah.
But it also needs to be interesting enough for someone to click on you. So, it needs to match their problem. Also, maybe add a bit of intrigue. But once they click on your name and they've looked at your profile, then they're going to scan down and see if you're a match. So they're going to be looking for experience. Are you the right fit? And they might read your summary. Now, your summary is a piece of text that allows you to tell your story. So this is your overarching introduction, your opening conversation, but people only see the first 3 lines by default. They have to click see more to see the rest of it. So you need to kind of hook them in, so they do click see more, and put some information in there that they might not find anywhere else. Now, for example, I'm from Yorkshire in the UK initially. That's where I was born. And it's on my summary, but down the bottom, I've got a little statement about, with me, I say a spade's a spade. I'm from Yorkshire, but with an Aussie slant in Ugg boot. I've got some reference to Ugg boots as well. So there's a couple of little things I put in there. And this proved itself because a couple of days ago, someone connected to me and said, I need some help with LinkedIn. Oh, my parents are from Yorkshire too. So I know straight away he's looked at my summary, because that's where he would have got that information from. I don't go around saying I'm from Yorkshire. No one knows that unless they've read it. So you can put little things, little hints, which help you track what people are reading, because LinkedIn doesn't tell you.
No, that's really interesting to be, and the idea of popping that down the bottom. So they have to, we know they've read through. They've actually read the whole summary if they've picked up that little bit of info. Okay, so we've got that intriguing headline that is clear on the keywords that people are searching for. Then the first 3, what did you say? The first 3 lines and the summary are actually visible. So we need to make sure that has a little bit of intrigue, a bit of curiosity, a bit of a promise, so that people want to click and read more. And then when the actual summary itself gives you that whole flavor, that full-bodied approach to, is this the person that, this feels interesting, maybe we'll go a bit further here.
Yeah.
So as you're going down the profile, another important part I've found in particular is when you're putting in your experience, but you've also got the recommendations from people. So how important is it to have recommendations on there?
Well, your recommendations are I call it the social proof, the evidence that you can do what you say you can do. It's like the good old testimonials, or what was the word for them? The written references. Back in the day, you'd have to send your resume and your references. So it allows people to connect with what other people are saying about you, because you can say anything about yourself, but it's more important what other people are saying about you. So there is ways to write them, and it's in the way that you ask for them, in the way, because I always ask with questions rather than just sending the blanket response, to get sort of something that's helpful for you, helpful for them, and tells the story of that interaction you've had with them, so to speak.
Yeah, that's like a classic testimonial scenario where it was like, what was the problem that you were battling with? What were you searching for? What was the experience like? What was the outcome? I mean, the typical sort of things that you use in a testimonial, but then to get those built up, because we can't put them ourselves on LinkedIn, we need to request that the people we're connected with actually put them in. And I think this is a tip that I'll add here. It's something that I did the other day when I realized that I hadn't actually updated the recommendation section for a long time. So I went across to the feedback that I had on my website and given to me from people. I reached out to them and said I'm looking at uplifting the profile on my LinkedIn. Here's what you said, which is on my website. It's cut and paste below. Could you please pop it into the recommendation? And bang, 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 happened nice and quickly. It was very easy for the people that I was reaching out to actually take that action. I made it very easy for them, which I think is really important in our busy lives.
And that's a really great tip for people that have already got the because you don't want to ask again if someone's already taken the time to write something for you. So, copying and pasting it and just saying, approve this essentially is a really easy way of doing it, particularly if obviously they have to be on LinkedIn, but it means that they actually show up on your profile as well. So there's a win-win for both, really.
Absolutely, because they can be clicked through to as well.
Yeah.
So there's some really solid tips there on the profile, because we've got to get the profile right before we actually can start the visibility side. Because if people then see our stuff, very highly technical marketing term there, and come back to our profile and it doesn't resonate, its piece is missing, it doesn't tell a strong story, then we've not done the full job and we've done ourselves a disservice. So is there any other pieces on the profile which are really important for us to look at before we actually start on the content strategy?
Well, one thing I wanted to mention just outside of the profile, but linked to the profile content, is one of the reasons I tell people to be on LinkedIn, even if you don't like LinkedIn yourself, you think your clients are not using it, the two actually things don't really matter. People use Google. People are searching on Google, and LinkedIn is it's indexed by Google, but it's highly ranked on Google just because of the way LinkedIn works. So, and I've done a lot of testing on myself, and I can take up the entire page of Google without me being logged in. So it's called an incognito search. So I would suggest that your listeners do some research. Go into your Chrome browser. At the top right-hand corner, there's 3 dots. You go open incognito window, and it's a blank canvas. So you're not then skewed by your location, your history. And do some research on the phrases you want to rank for. Research your name, research your business name, the 3 things, and see where you rank. Are you ranking? Are your competitors ranking? Because you want to take up the first page of Google, and your LinkedIn profile will help you do that. And it will be, if you're using it sort of fairly, if it's optimizing using it fairly regularly, you'll probably find it's in the top 3, if not the first result. So for me, for my name, I rank higher on LinkedIn than I do my own website. So that's the reason to use LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And actually, I've just done that as we were talking. So I've gone in, I've done the incognito search, and out of all of the results, and there is a lot of stuff, obviously, I've been around for a while, the second one that comes up is my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
So voila, that's absolutely demonstrated the importance of having that visibility on LinkedIn, without a doubt.
Absolutely. And that's why, going back to having the right language on your profile, your headline, like I said, is one of the critical areas, your experience. Another really important thing is, and this is fairly recent, now LinkedIn don't share a lot about their algorithm, just as some of the other platforms don't either. They're quite protective. But I've got a mastermind group of LinkedIn trainers, and we do a lot of testing and knowledge sharing. And one thing that we've found is, with the keywords and phrases that you've got in your headline, to rank higher, you want to make sure that those phrases are listed as skills on your profile, and you've got at least 2 endorsements for those skills. So something that we've discovered seems to be working well. So make sure that your skills match the keywords. And, make sure that people are endorsing you. So endorsements were a bit noisy for a while. LinkedIn were really pushing them heavily. And they're not really believed. They're not as valued as anywhere near recommendations, but they do help. They're a social signal that backs up your search ability. So they do have a place. So do, yes.
I like that. And the difference between, as you're talking about, social proof of the recommendations versus social signals of the endorsements.
Yep.
I do remember endorsements from a while ago when I'd get endorsed for random things, and I really didn't take much notice of it. But that's really powerful. That's really important to understand. So in our headline, so business mentoring, for example, would be in my headline. It would be in my skill set, and I'd be looking to have at least 2 endorsements for that particular skill. And then so those three together seem to help the algorithm. Thank you. Awesome.
Absolutely. So and then use those words throughout your profile as well, and also in your content, which we'll get to. But those things help back up, who you are and who you say you are and what we're going to come up in search outside of LinkedIn.
Okay. I'm taking notes, just like I told everyone to.
Excellent.
That's great, Jo. Thank you. Okay, so let's say that we've gone through, we've sorted out our profile, we've got those connections, those recommendations, those social signals, we've told some of our backstories so that we've differentiated ourselves. So, and we know that we are now being more just at the first step of visibility because LinkedIn is so easily found through Google or our profiles through Google. Now let's go to the next step. So we've done that. But that's just the starting point. Where do we go next to increase our visibility here?
So now you need to, these things you're going to be doing consistently and at the same time, but you need to be building a network of people. So having those connections, because otherwise you've sort of, particularly if you've actually got someone to optimize your profile. I mean, that's a service I provide. So if you paid me to, optimize your profile so you look beautifully, well branded, well positioned, but you're not growing your network, you're kind of only reaching the people that are in your current network, or maybe you're just talking to yourself in a dark room. So you want to be making sure that you're consistently growing a network of the right people.
Okay, so how do we go about that?
So there's a few ways. So, I mean, the easy one is just to sit back and let it happen, because people will find you and connect you. You probably see incoming connection requests all the time, and then you decide to say yes or no. And this is a question I get asked a lot. Who should I connect to? Should I connect to random strangers? Do I need to be really specific about it? And that comes down to your own strategy, who your client base is. But one thing to keep in mind is it's not necessarily about the person that's connecting to you. It's actually bigger than that, because it's about who the person's connected to. Because the way LinkedIn works, and this is really important to understand, and I've got this all when I do presentations, this diagram, just to kind of get so people get it. If I'm connected to you, you become a first level connection to me. So you'll see the number 1 on your profile. And if I then share an update, and so this is going back to the LinkedIn algorithm, which you can't, you never know what it actually is. But if you engage with me enough, you're going to see my content more. So I've shared an update about something I've been doing. You may see it. Now, if you engage with my update, what you're doing is you're sending a signal to your network. So say you're connected to Barbara. So she's my second level connection. She's 2 degrees away. She may see my content because you've commented on it, which then she could actually comment on. She might decide to add her views on whatever it is. And then the signal is it's going to her network, which is 3 degrees away from me. So that's the power of LinkedIn. So you need to have a network, a connected network. You need to be adding value so that you're reaching more people. So if you're not growing your network, you're only reaching the people in your network and their connections. So you want to be growing it strategically. So like I said, people that I call it all about, it's really about influence, because it's the people that you want to influence and the people that have people in their network that they have influence over that you'd like to reach, if that makes sense.
So one of the first steps, if you're thinking about strategic networking and strategic visibility building, when you receive a request, then go and have a look at that person's profile, obviously, and have a look at who perhaps is in their audience, because what you're doing is you're extending, as you're saying, your impact, your influence with potential into their audience as well. Is there a match there? So it's actually going 1 degree past just having that initial look at their profile. Would that be what you mean here?
Yeah, well, the beauty of it doing that, and you've got control of your privacy settings, but by default, the setting is on so that people know you're looking at them, which is good and bad. I mean, mainly good, because this is early networking. So if I don't know you and I look at your profile, you're going to get a little signal to say, Joe's looked at my profile. You're now going to be curious, who is this Joe lady? Look at my profile in return, and then one of us will potentially connect to each other. So it's a really easy way to start building a relationship with someone without saying any words. So looking at someone's profile is useful, and it depends on how you discover them. You might discover someone through mutual connections. You might actually be strategically searching for particular people. Like you might be doing a search for, lawyers in Melbourne, for example, in a particular area with different keywords. And you'll have a short list, and you might decide to look at their profiles as your initial activity and do a bit of research. Are they a fit? should I connect to them now, or should I just follow them for now and then connect later? Because you can connect or you could follow them. They're two different things, but they're, they have different reasons. You have different reasons for doing the two. So I'll just quickly explain, because I often, when I work with students particularly who are a little bit shy, following is a nice way to connect to influencers without that actual connection process if it's a bit intimidating. So if it's someone, say a CEO of a company that you kind of think, oh, it's a bit too
forward.
Yeah, a bit too forward to jump in now. I'm not ready for that. If you go to their profile, firstly, there's a signal that you're looking at them, so they know you're looking at them. They might reach out to you, but if they don't, well, you could follow them. And where the connect button is on a profile, you'll see connect. You might see in-mail, depending on how many degrees away they are. So if they're a second level connection, you've got a connection in common, second degree, you'll see the connect button generally. If they're 3 degrees away from you, so a connection of a connection of a connection, you might see the word in-mail on that button. But if you go to the drop-down menu, which is behind more or the 3 dots, that's where you'll see the connect, but you also see follow. And follow allows you to have their updates in your newsfeed, so you can start engaging with them if you want to, or just monitor them, but you can't message them directly, and they won't see your updates. So it depends on the relationship and how you network. Because really, when you're networking online, it's good to mirror what you do in person. So if you're a very bold and out there person, you're going to connect online because that's what you do in person. But if you're quite reserved and a little bit shy, maybe, you might just sort of follow initially. If that makes sense.
It does, and actually that was a really breakthrough thought, that sometimes we think when we're coming online and we're doing this type of work that we need to become someone different and we need to, approach this in a certain way. But you've just given great freedom in that statement that you made, which connect online and network online just the same as you would offline. I'm a bit bouncy. I tend to bounce up to people at networking events and introduce myself and introduce them. And so it makes sense that I should have a similar approach when I'm online. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
and it's nice that people who are introverts can act in a way that within their comfort zone online. I mean, online space is always easier in person if you're an introvert because it's not as in your face and, but if you're not the kind of person that would assume a relationship and want to connect, you don't have to initially. You can follow, look at their profile, start engaging with them with the content that they're sharing, and then at some point, when you're ready, then connect, because now you've got some reference points. You can sort of say, I really agree with your view on blah, 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 or I loved your article about X, Y, Z, or well done on winning that award, because you've researched them and you know a bit about them. And now you can talk to them rather than just going, I'd like to add you to my professional network, that default boring message, because they're going to think, who are you and why,
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I've certainly received when people have asked for connections. If they don't actually ask me or give me a reason why, I tend not to connect, because it feels as though they've just pushed the button and they haven't personalised the message. So it doesn't feel as though there's a genuine desire for connection. That's my feeling.
They probably have, and I don't judge them on that, because LinkedIn doesn't make it easy. Like on desktop, if you hit the connect button, you get the little box encouraging you to add a little introduction message, which LinkedIn actually encourages you to do. But on their mobile app, which more than 70% are using now, if you hit the connect button, it sends that default message, which I think is still a silly move. You've got to go and find the hidden menu to see personalize. And when I do presentations and I teach people, because I like to get people to get out their phones, that I love that collective moment, because it's that whole, it's there, it's hidden. LinkedIn have hidden it, and it's not easy, and it's not difficult to find once you know where to look.
Well, you know what? You just had that moment from me as well, because I was like, oh, really? Because I typically use LinkedIn from my desktop.
Yeah.
And so I've been nastily passing judgment on people when it just wasn't justified. So what I'm going to do is on the show notes for this particular episode, I will do a screenshot of where it is that we can actually personalise the message through your mobile. So another golden moment there.
And what I love when I do live presentations, because people will jump ahead and connect to me, which I love. And then when I've revealed where it is, they go, oh, I'm really sorry, but I've just sent you the default message. I'm so sorry. But I said, that's fine. I don't judge you on that, because I know that it's not your fault. Often it's LinkedIn's fault because they don't make it easy. But you can go back then once you've accepted and then send a message saying, hi, thanks for accepting my connection request, blah, 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 ask questions and start a conversation. So it's not the end of the world. You can fix it. But one of the reasons to have that personalized message is it's a reminder for how you know the person, and it reminds them how you know them. So in the message history, it's always there, even if you archive it. So if I connect to you and I've said, hi, Angela, I heard you on your podcast, blah, 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 I loved you, blah, 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 a quick intro. And then years down the track, I think, how do I know Angela again? I can look back in my own message history and find that trigger, because LinkedIn don't give you any way to manage your relationships on the platform. That's the only way to really add a note, so to speak, with the free version.
Yeah, let's go and do that. Okay, well, that's a great tip. So what we've got now, we've understood of changes, some tweaks to make to our profile. We're understanding the different options that we've got in terms of building our own connections, whether we're following or connecting, and then starting to comment and on people's content so that what we do becomes more visible as well. So let's now talk about the longer term stuff in terms of content creation. Now, how do we use LinkedIn? I think many of us are on it. And we've built up connections to a certain extent, but now how do we actually manage our visibility from a content creation perspective?
Well, so having a bit of a plan. Now, you don't have to go down to, I'm going to post it Tuesday at 4 p.m, Thursday at 10 a.m. and whatever, that sort of, you can if that's how you operate, if you like to have that level of detail, but you don't necessarily have to. LinkedIn doesn't require a lot of feeding, but it needs consistency. So, with some platforms, like say Facebook, for example, the latest expert might say you need to post on your page 4 times a day to maintain your visibility, blah, blah, blah. But on LinkedIn, you might post once a week on your profile, because LinkedIn is driven by person-to-person relationships, and it's adding value, so not adding noise anymore. It used to be about, being quite very, very active. Now it's about really quality content, but content doesn't have to be generated by yourself. So I share content a few times a week, but not necessarily every day anymore, because it's not about that. It's actually about, and I've come up with my own formula, but it's about engaging with your network, engaging with people you follow, or just people that you come across. So I always say to every post that you share, so every one post you share, have 8 or 9 touch points with other people. So it's almost the 80-20 rule in reverse. So share your own content, but also engage with other people's content. So it's about conversations. That's where it's going. So, and that's easy to do. It doesn't take a lot of effort.
So this is a breakthrough idea here in terms of visibility, because I think most of us think about, in terms of visibility, I need to be seen, I need to be creating content, I need to be pumping it out there. But the point that you made about adding value, not noise, is really important. So there's one part, there's adding value, but there's also joining or creating conversation. It feels like there's 2 pieces to the LinkedIn puzzle.
Well, it's the talking at versus talking with. That's the way I like to look at it. It used to be very much about, you can skip, because there's third-party tools you can use, like Hootsuite and Buffer and all these sorts of tools. You can throw content at LinkedIn, and that might be your LinkedIn strategy. I built a profile, I'm now building my network of connections, and I'm going to throw content at LinkedIn, and hopefully it'll stick. That doesn't work, because, you can put a bit of content out there, but it's the actual real interactions. Otherwise, if you look at how we physically network, it's like going to a networking event, walking around the room, throwing your business card at people, handing out your brochure, and then walking away. People don't like those kind of people generally.
Why ever not? Why ever not?
So if you think about what works really well when you're physically networking is, you'll have a few quality conversations. You'll get to a point of exchanging business cards during a conversation, not at the first point. You might have discussions about things. You might hear something interesting, and if you can replicate that online, which is why it's really difficult to outsource your entire social media. You cannot outsource the content, the talking at, you can outsource that absolutely. But you've got to talk with in between. So you've got to have a balance of both so that people can understand what value you bring and what your expertise is. And that's then going to help you build your influence and authority in your area as well as your visibility.
So is it safe to say if we were bringing this into a strategy or even coming down the next level to a tactic, if one went and spent, say, 10 minutes in the morning in their LinkedIn feed, commenting, sharing, just having some activity, so you've actually got some presence, is that a little bit too perfunctory, or could that be a good place to start?
That's an easy way to start. And I liken it to back in the old days. I mean, I'm old enough to be back before internet, back before when we used to have a cup of coffee in the morning at the office and you'd get out the newspaper or the magazine and you'd read that. Same thing, except you're actually interacting with these people creating content. So, 10 minutes a day, if that's still, I'm sure that's doable. There's probably 10 minutes a day you're spending on Facebook in the vortex or watching YouTube videos you shouldn't be watching. So spending that time in LinkedIn building relationships is easy. And that's a nice place. That's what I'm saying. You need a strategy, but it doesn't have to be a really rigid strategy. It's about consistency and conversations. And that can be your strategy. And then the rigid strategy might be, I want to publish an article on LinkedIn once a month, or I've got a blog post I want to amplify on LinkedIn, and you might have that all scheduled. But in between, that's where the value is, if that makes sense.
Okay, so on one side we've got the consistency and the conversations, and on the other side, this is the other part that I wanted to talk about, was the actual promotion the promotional aspect. So if you're wanting to talk about, the program that you've got coming up, or the service that you have, or the blog post that you've just completed, how does one go about utilizing that on LinkedIn in an effective way so that it pulls in with the rest of what you're saying about adding the value, not the noise? Because I think some of us may hold back a little bit about, well, can I just go in there and go, here's my thing? Because obviously that's gonna fall on deaf ears. So how would you recommend one goes about promoting as opposed to just conversing?
Well, it's almost, I believe you have to earn the right to promote almost on LinkedIn to actually be heard. So if I just went in and promoted, here's my next workshop, here's my next blah, 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 people don't want to be sold to. So you have to almost earn the right to have that sales conversation. So going back to that piece, if I said sort of one piece of your own content to maybe 8 interactions, and maybe every third post, or actually, no, that's probably way too many actually, probably every 5th post could be a piece that's a sales piece, but not buy my stuff kind of piece. But here's 3 tips about X, Y, Z. To learn more, do this, go there. Oh, by the way, I've got a workshop coming up. So it's almost a by the way kind of statement. You can get away with that, if you're adding value. But if it's just a next workshop, blah, 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 or worse than that, private messaging people in bulk and telling them about your workshop, it just doesn't work. People don't like it.
No, I think that's really important, that idea of earning the right to promote. And I think it's really, and I can point the finger at myself here in terms of almost feeling sometimes like I've ticked a box with LinkedIn. I've put some content on LinkedIn. There you go, tick that box. Right, what's next on my to-do list today? And that type of approach just isn't going to work. And so I think the reality is we've all got a certain amount of time that we have to spend on building our business, on the connecting, on the marketing piece. And without a doubt, and I mean, let's just talk it, putting all of these sort of activities under the umbrella of marketing. Let's just call it that for a moment. When you're first starting out, or when you're in the first couple of years of business, we spend so much more time marketing because we're not spending that much time serving clients because we don't have that many of them yet. Yeah. So that ratio of marketing to serving will change over time. But we can't just have a tick a box strategy. We need to make a decision as to, which are the platforms that will work for us, which are the strategies that will work for us. And that all comes down to in my world, what are the watering holes? Where will I find and connect with the type of people, and not just potential clients, but collaborators and influencers and mentors and all those other types of people we come across in business. And it feels as though a lot of women in particular that I work with have professional services. That's the type of business that they have. And so LinkedIn, to me, makes perfect sense as a big networking event that you can attend on a regular basis without leaving your desk. So it feels
absolutely.
Like it's got a lot of potential.
Well, and one of the things to mention, like I'm talking about people who their ideal clients are on LinkedIn. So if your ideal clients are not on LinkedIn but they're in Google, then that's why you'd have a presence. You'd have a bit of content, but you wouldn't probably spend as much time in LinkedIn as someone in, say, professional services or in that sort of zone. But there are exceptions. Now, in my book, Get Good or Get Off, I've got a few case studies, but I feature a lady called Kate Lister. She's a florist in the UK. She runs a home-based business. And she's a florist. And you think, well, florists, LinkedIn, don't go. No, not at all. That's why I've got her in my book, because she's a florist that has built this massive network. She's very engaging. In fact, her headline says, florist and the area that she works in, and very chatty person. Because she is. She's a chatty person. But what she's done is she's built this online brand, and she's become known on LinkedIn. So she's become famous locally as that florist on LinkedIn, because everybody knows her locally because of her LinkedIn presence. And while she services businesses locally in this particular, it's in Grimsby in the UK. So I'm not a client of hers, I'm not her ideal client. But if I need flowers in Grimsby, she's my go-to person. But she's become so well known in the local space because of her presence. So you can do that. So when I got asked, should tradies be on LinkedIn, or, people that you think, well, are there clients on LinkedIn? Well, yes, they absolutely should be, but the strategy is going to be a bit slightly different. So it might be using it to find the right people to get meetings with, or to actually phone people if that's your way of operating. So it comes down to how you do business. Are you an email person? Are you a phone person? Are you is it a slower process? Because LinkedIn is a long game if you're talking about what we've just talked about, the conversing and building relationships. But if you want to do the lead gen kind of then you can just find the information through LinkedIn, use the database of it, and do it that way. So it all comes down to your own strategy.
And I like that acknowledgement that LinkedIn is a long-term strategy. It's not the same as, even if we think about Facebook, for example, that we can utilize Facebook advertising, because let's be honest, not a lot of our followers actually see what we do on Facebook these days, and that's a reality. That's a reality. Yeah. It's a paid platform in a large extent for a business. But we can go out there and place a couple of ads and get a result, inverted commas. But LinkedIn is definitely that more of that longer term relationship building. And so it's a case of what I'm hearing for you in terms of building your visibility. It's making decisions and it's making choices, and it's deciding on the type of strategy that'll work for you, and what role will LinkedIn play in your overall approach to marketing. It might be a small piece, it might be a big piece. It depends on who it is that you're wanting to contact and connect
Absolutely.
with.
And that's the thing. While I choose to specialize in LinkedIn, and I do strategy across the board, it's about working out how big that piece is. And it's not for, like I said, it's not for everybody. I believe everybody should be on LinkedIn in some form, but understand where it fits in. But the actual day-to-day conversations, depending on your business type, will differ. I mean, some people, Facebook is where the gold is, but for some people, no, it's going to be LinkedIn. And it might be the best time investment you can make if you've got 10 minutes a day just to, jump in and like a few things, comment on a few things, reply to a few of your notifications and messages. That might be the best use of your time.
Absolutely. Well, this is great. We've got some really concrete steps that we can take in terms of, as we started with the idea of tweaking your profile so that it is so you're easier to find, which is all about visibility. And we've talked about the content strategy. We've talked about how to connect and network, or just follow if you want to quietly and politely stalk for a while. That's okay too. So now that we know that part is possible as well. So for someone that's listening today and thinking, okay, I do believe that my type of clients are on LinkedIn, so it's time to start some movements there. Where would you get started? I want to say your 3 top tips to boost your visibility on LinkedIn today, if I went and put things into action straight away.
Well, I'd look at your first impression. So step into the shoes of your ideal client and look at your own profile and take a good hard look. Does it actually represent you well? Or are you apologizing for that profile photo from 10 years ago when you had, different hairstyle, or you're wearing a strapless dress, which really shouldn't be on LinkedIn because suddenly you look naked. So review your profile and do that homework we said at the beginning. Do the incognito search using Google on Chrome, and where do you rank for your name, your business, and the keywords that you want to be found for that your ideal clients would be using. Do that, and then fix your profile so that you are going to come up in search for those things, and then start looking at, who could you be connecting to? Who have you met recently? Who have you influenced, or who's influenced you? And then look at your content strategy. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a long articles posted every day. It can just be little touches and engagement with people. So they're the 3 things. Just looking at those 3 areas and just seeing what you can do right now, but making sure you look good first, because first impressions count. So you've got visibility in Google and search and what you actually look like. So if people are looking at your profile, because you've got seconds to make that impression, 3 to 5 seconds, particularly on a mobile, people are going to move on and they're going to judge you based on particularly your headline. So make sure that really positions you well.
Yeah, that is so important because we are time poor. We are moving quickly. We are making quick decisions, often on the run. When we have more time to digest, fantastic. But quite often things do have to happen quickly these days. And so we need to make sure that we're giving off, as you said, does it reflect you well? Is that first impression going to be positive? And then you can move on from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, Jo. Thank you so much for opening the book on all of this and sharing this with us. So I will make sure that there are links in the show notes. But for people listening and driving along who want to go and discover more about the world of Jo, where do we find you online?
Well, if you just Google Jo Saunders, I should take up the entire first page of Google, hopefully. You'll LinkedIn, so linkedin.com/in/Jo Saunders. I'm /Jo Saunders AU pretty much everywhere else. And then obviously my website, wildfiresocialmarketing.com. I've got lots of information and help there as well.
You have indeed. And I will end up by saying that the way that I found you was via LinkedIn when I was looking for someone who could talk on the subject. And yes, you were right at the top of every search that I did. So the things that you're talking about absolutely work without a doubt. So thank you again for sharing your expertise here with us today.
No problems at all. Happy to help.
And for you, my lovely listener, I hope that you have taken the advice that I had at the very beginning of this conversation to take some notes, because there were so many gems there that Jo has shared with us. You can make small changes to that LinkedIn profile. It is important for you to make choices and decisions about where are you going to focus your attention and your time to really raise your visibility. But for many of us, LinkedIn is a little bit of a neglected, shall we say, part of our overall marketing strategy. So really sitting down and deciding, is this an area which has potential for me not to only exert influence, so to speak, but to also connect with people that can assist you. This is a two-way conversation that's happening in the world of LinkedIn. So take some time today to see how that will fit into your overall marketing strategy. And we'd love to hear how it works. And perhaps you'll even connect with both Jo and I via LinkedIn. You should find us pretty easily, maybe even all over page 1 of Google if you're searching for us. So have a wonderful day. Thank you again for listening to the Your Next Chapter Business podcast. And I'll be back again very soon with another episode in this Increasing Your Visibility series. Take care. Thanks for listening to the Your Next Chapter podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. Pop over to angelaraspas.com to subscribe to the show and leave a review. And whilst you're there, you can also enjoy valuable free resources, including show notes and downloads, along with the Next Chapter community, where you can connect with other wholehearted women on the same journey as you. We'd love to welcome and support you as your next chapter unfolds. See you next time.